Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. In today's video presentation, my groupmates and I are going to present on the differences between inflectional and derivational properties. My name is Atika Azurin and I will be your first presenter, and the second half of the video will be presented by Najwa and the last half of the video will be presented by Izzat. The ultimate goal is to determine whether inflection and derivation have sufficiently different traits as to suggest that they represent two distinct subsystems in the morphology architecture. Now let's look at the properties of the derivational and inflectional morphology. First, relevance to syntax. So inflection is relevant to syntax while derivation is not relevant to syntax. Why? Because, for the most part, the relevant to syntax means that the grammatical function or meaning expressed by a morphological pattern is involved in syntactic agreement or syntactic government. In syntactic government, one word requires another word or phrase to have a particular inflectional value. For example, agreement. Agreement is a kind of syntactic relation in which the inflectional value of a word phrase, which is the target, must be the same as the inflectional value of another word of phrase in the sentence. As an example given, the boy, which is a noun phrase, walked with an S, which is a verb, and the girl with an S, which is a noun phrase, walk as a verb, and the target verb walks and walk agrees with the subject noun phrase in number, and as in this girl and these boys. The second difference would be the obligatoriness. So inflectional features are obligatorily expressed on all applicable word forms, while derivational meanings are not obligatorily expressed. For example, it can be illustrated by Latin. The lexeme insula, which means island, has 10 word forms in its paradigm, and each word form expresses and must express one value from each of the features, number and case, which leaves the Latin speaker no choice about whether to use a noun with or without the case and number features. Omitting these features was impossible. Number and case are thus inflectional features in Latin according to this criterion, obligatoriness. By contrast, expression of a given derivational meaning is not obligatory. The English suffix er applies to the verbs to derive noun with the meaning of agent, for example, drinker. But it is not the case that all nouns must be expressed as an adjunctive meaning. Next, the limitations on application. So inflectional values can be applied to their base without arbitrary limitations, while derivational formations may be limited in an arbitrary way. Generally speaking, a lexeme's paradigm contains a full set of inflected forms. Verbal paradigms have word forms expressing all tense aspect mood values that are relevant to the language. In comparison to inflectional, the arbitrary derivational gaps are quite common. Conceivable derived lexemes may be lacking without any obvious semantic explanation. For example, English has female noun in ess, such as waitress, authoress, heiress, priestess, but it is not possible to say professoress to describe a female professor, or presidentess to describe a female president, even though these make perfect sense semantically.
Salam and greetings. My name is Najwa. I'll be explaining on the properties number 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let's start with properties number 4, same concept as base. Some concepts are best discussed in terms of canonical inflectional traits and canonical derivational traits. Canonical inflected word form express the same concept as the base. On the other hand, canonical derived lexeme express a new concept. As example for inflectional, we have go and goes. Go for singular and goes for plural. We still have a same concept, right? And then we have sing and sung. Sing is the present tense and sung for the past tense. And then for derivational examples, we have bake become baker. From verb now, it become a noun. So we can see it form a new concept. And then we have play to player. Player is someone who play. Now let's move to properties number 5, abstractness. Inflectional values express a relatively abstract meaning, but derivational meanings are relatively concrete. In the real world, a concrete noun refers to a tangible entity such as dogs, balls, ice creams, and many more. An abstract noun refers to an idea or concept that does not exist in the real world and cannot be touched. Like the word sadness, we get the word sadness from Latin sad and permission from the Latin permit. Next, properties number 6, meaning compositionality. Canonical inflected words form have compositional meaning, but canonical derived lexemes have non-compositional meanings. Inflectional values usually make a predictable semantic contribution to their base, but derived lexemes are often semantically idiosyncratic, or in other words, derivational have some unpredictable aspect to their meaning. As example, in Russian, the suffix "nik" means thing associated with, and this meaning is clearly present in the word "nevnik", which means diary. Nev means day. The meaning of nevnik is not exhausted by that of nerve and nik. Maybe a diary is indeed a kind of thing associated with days or daily activities, so that's why the meaning is very unpredictable, right? Next, position relative to base. Canonical inflection is expressed at the periphery of words. Canonical derivation is expressed close to the root, but his property can only be used in exceptional cases as a guidance tool, since it is a relative property and not an absolute one. The first is best demonstrated by words on the same side of the root that have one derivative affix and one inflectional affix. In such cases, the derivational affix almost always occurs between the root and the inflectional affix. As example here, kingdoms. The term is close to the root. That's all from me. Next, I pass the floor to Izzat Zafri. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Izzat, and now I am going to continue another 4 differences between inflectional morphemes and derivational morphemes. Okay, so differences number 8 is base allomorphy. So what is allomorphy? We have learned allomorphy during our phonetics and phonology class during our first year. So do you still remember? Allomorphy is the phenomenon that a single morpheme has different realizations, meaning that one morpheme can have different spellings that is rooted to the same morpheme. That is what we call as allomorphy. So in inflectional morpheme, we have less base allomorphy, but in derivational, we have more base allomorphy. So let's take a look at the examples. So in inflectional morphemes, in English language, for example, root word destroy, when inflected into past tense, we add ed, right? So it become destroyed. But as you can see here, the base is still using the same spelling. It does not change in spelling, right? It is still the same as the root. Okay, and then next example, in German language, root word earth means earth in English. When inflected into plural, it become earthen. Okay, meaning earths in English, plural earth. Okay, so as you can see here, similar, the base does not change. It's still the same as the root word earth. Okay, erde, erde. Okay, let's take a look at the example under derivational. English word, root word destroy. So the same example like just now. When derived into adjective, become destruction. But what happened to the base? The base changes in spelling. Now it is destruc, no longer destroy. This is what we call as allomorphy. Okay, next example, German language. Root word earth, meaning earth. When derived into adjective, it become irdisch, meaning earthly in English. as we can see here, the base changes in spelling. Now IRD, no longer ERDE. Okay. So next slide. The next difference is word class change. So what is word class? Word class is basically the word function, adjective, noun, verb, etc., etc. Okay. So what happens when there is a change of grammatical class? When there is a change in grammatical class, usually it is categorized as derivational morphemes. Okay. And if it changes the grammatical class, we call it as class changing. If it doesn't, it can be derivational or inflectional. Okay, and we call it as class maintaining. So to make it simple, derivational can be class changing and also can be class maintaining, and inflectional usually it is class maintaining. So no change of grammatical class. Let's take a look at the examples. Okay, first example under class changing, noun plus suffix less becomes adjective. Okay, before this we have noun, and then after we combine with suffix less, become adjective. For example, help. Help is a noun. We add suffix less, and then the stem become helpless. It becomes adjective. So the word class change. Okay, this is derivational. Okay, and then let's take a look at other examples. Example number 1 under class maintaining. He likes bungee jumping as much as his younger brother. Okay, as we can see here, adjective plus suffix er becomes adjective. The word class doesn't change. Okay, young plus er, young is an adjective, younger also an adjective. So after we add suffix, no change. There is no changes in word class. But where should we categorize this? Inflectional or derivational? This is inflectional. Why? Because this is what we call as a comparative adjective. So as we know, inflectional morphemes only have 8 things. One of it is comparative adjective. So this belongs to inflectional morphemes. Second example, suffix prefix re plus verb becomes verb. Word class doesn't change. So let's say we add do, redo, and then it becomes redo, right? So do is a verb, redo also is a verb. The stem is still a verb. So no word class change here. Okay. So next differences is cumulative expressions, meaning that in one word or in one morpheme, it can represent many expressions. Okay. So in inflectional, values can be expressed cumulatively. Meanwhile, in derivational, values cannot be expressed cumulatively, or we can say very rare. Okay, let's take a look at the examples. In Latin language, insul plus arum. Insul, the base, plus suffix arum, meaning of the islands in English. The suffix arum expresses both genitive and also plural. Genitive meaning the possessive noun, and also plural. But in derivational morphemes, I didn't say that it does not exist at all. It does exist, but only at certain languages. For example, in Dutch language, we have derivational ster suffix. It expresses both agent and female. It does exist, but very rare. Alright. Okay, the last one is iteration. So inflectional values cannot be iterated. Meanwhile, the derivational values can be iterated usually. Let's take a look at the examples. Okay, although I said just now inflectional morphemes cannot be iterated, there is a possible example. For example, in English, we can say catses, meaning sets of cats. It sounds logically, however, it is virtually unattested, meaning it is not documented, not being used. So technically, it is not exist lah. And then next example in derivational. Example in African language, kinjiji, meaning a little child. As you can see here, the derivational value is repeated twice here. G. Okay, that is what we call as iteration. The next one in German language, Urgroßvater, meaning great grandfather. As you can see here, the derivational morpheme is being repeated thrice, 3 times here. Ur. So derivational can be iterated. Okay, so that's all from me. I'll pass the presentation to Ju for conclusion.
To conclude, there are 11 properties to differentiate inflection and derivation morphology. Before we end this presentation, the table here gives an overview of the differences of inflectional and derivational morphology. That's all from us. I hope you find this video beneficial. Thank you for listening.